Do your end users always, and I mean always, without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at securityweekly.com/1password. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Identiverse 2025 is returning to Las Vegas June 3rd through 6th. You can hear from over 250 expert speakers and connect with over 3,000 identity security professionals across 4 days of keynotes, breakout sessions, and deep dives into the latest identity security trends. Plus, take part in hands-on workshops and explore the brand new non-human identity pavilion. Register now and save 25% with code IDV25-securityweekly at securityweekly.com/IDV2025. Also, I will be there broadcasting live, I found out today. So looking forward to that. All right, now for the Enterprise Security Weekly News, you can check out securityweekly.com/ESW399. That is correct. We are one away from episode 400. If you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles we're covering, or for my often snarky comments left on those unsaid articles. Also, we have Katie with us. Hello, Katie.
Good afternoon. Hi. Glad to be back.
Refreshed from vacation?
Ish.
And also,
still a little jet lag because we didn't get in until last night, but I have caffeine and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Good. And also, I didn't introduce Jason. Sorry about that, Jason. You joined the last segment, but I did not introduce you.
Yeah. I just thought that when you said hi to Katie, I was like, oh, wait, I got skipped.
Yeah, apologies for that.
I just slipped
good
into
on
the
that
second interview. I just slipped in there.
All right. I think I'm doing better on the news here. Only 11 stories, and we've got some fun ones. And so the Cybereason drama continues. Less drama, it seems now with the CEO gone. I think the lawsuit is still there, but with him gone, they raised $120 million. I think him leaving was one of the contingencies to raise that money. So a lot going on with like early stage investors getting, their investments getting watered down versus, control over the direction of the company and all that. So, seem to resolve a lot of that. We'll see if it helps the company. I think the biggest loser are the sales team trying to sell to customers as the company's going through this crazy roller coaster, trying to stay around. I don't know how you sell a product when the company is this unstable.
Yeah, there are so many things that can affect you in terms of brand and market and like your cat licking himself. There are so many things that can affect your ability to portray your company well in the market because it's such a crowded space. All of these spaces, whatever you're looking at, whether it's endpoint or AppSec or network or whatever, the competition is already tough. And with all of these changes, you end up spending more time trying to compensate for the negative buzz versus anything that is positive with the product. So kudos to those who have stuck it out. And for those who are coming in, hopefully this will be a more stable environment because Cybereason used to be one of the biggest and one of the most respected companies in the market, looking back a little ways, and they've had trouble. So hopefully new leadership, new culture, new attitude, a little more strategic direction will make it good. You never want to see a company, unless they're just an outright bad company with, some evil people in there, which is just not normal. You never want to see a cybersecurity company fail, right? We all want to have good companies with good people
Choice in
doing the right things.
Yeah, stability's got to be priority number one. With hopefully a new CEO coming in, with this new funding coming in. So yeah, we'll see. Only time will tell. The other funding here is Pantera, raising $60 million Series D already. I still think of them as a new company, but Series D is pretty far down the well. And I love pretty much everything in this space. Anything doing validation of controls. We just spent the last couple of interviews talking about with CardinalOps and Michael talking about what did he say? 25-30% of detections don't even work in the average company. So the BAS, anything that's doing control validation is important. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so the big one to talk about today is after turning down a $23 billion deal and saying, we're good. We're good. We don't need your money, Google. Wiz did not turn down the $32 billion bid. Maybe they were just trying to go for the largest security deal ever, and $23 billion wasn't as big as Splunk's $28 billion deal when Cisco picked up Splunk. I don't know. I don't know how this works. Once you get up into the billions, is it just a game? We want to be the number one acquisition ever. I don't know, but they certainly proved the point that they were worth it and stuck it out. And I think this makes a lot more sense than an IPO. I think Wiz is not the right kind of company to go public. Public investors, shareholders don't like a lot of risk and change, and cybersecurity companies have to be risky and have to change and pivot as threats and the market changes, right? So I don't think it's a good place for most cybersecurity companies to be unless they're very stable, like an identity provider like Okta or something like that.
Not a bad return, though. I mean, you delay it 1 year, you up things $9 billion. That's most people will take
Not
that.
a bad. Yeah.
I want those negotiating skills. I don't know about you guys.
No kidding.
Another $9 billion. Like that's crazy. Katie, remember a couple years ago when we were coming up with a new name, Decacorn, and I think it was for Wiz. For a company with a valuation of over $10 billion, I couldn't have imagined it being triple that.
I used to think of Duo as sort of the pinnacle. How quick they
2.3.
Right.
I think that one was 2.3.
I think it was 3.2, maybe. Either way, it was impressive.
Tiny.
given the time that they were in the market, given what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly, going back to the first story, they had an executive team that was just so laser focused and spot on and just had this ability to understand the market. And man, Wiz, they've blown everything out of the water. And it's a really good strategic move, right? It strengthens Google's cloud platform. It's going to put pressure on the competitive landscape, particularly major cloud providers like Amazon and Microsoft, which have some maybe baggage that go along with them, right? And it signals that Google really has a commitment to security in a time when people are wondering what the heck is happening with security and privacy.
It's Google's biggest acquisition ever of any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wish if I had the time, I'd go back and put together like a mega cut of all the times we talked about Wiz, because I think we've covered them pretty much since they were in stealth. And I remember when they came out with saying after coming out of stealth, they were out of stealth for 18 months, saying that they were doing 100 million ARR, and we were just kind of, aghast. right? And we're looking at how quickly they're building the team. I don't even know how you hire that many headcount that fast to grow a company that fast. I don't even know how you find enough people that quickly. Like there must be a story there in how they were even able to grow a company at this rate. So that's what really makes this remarkable, is not just the deal price, but how quickly these founders built a company that could sell for that much. I think these founders have a blank check for the rest of their lives with VCs.
Just about, yeah.
Maybe
for
they
that
have
much money, they
a
could write
really
blank
great
checks.
idea for 18
Right.
to 24
That's true.
months post the acquisition. Who knows?
Yeah, and it's yeah, it's going to be. I don't know a lot of the key numbers. Like I don't know what the actual what the revenue number is right now. So I don't know what the multiple is on that. But I wouldn't be surprised if it breaks some other records also. You know, like on the multiple, and you know, certainly in recent memory. You know, I think the last big multiple I remember was Duo, which was like over 20, I think, which was pretty huge for a security company. 6 to 10 these days is pretty good. You know, VCs for security companies aren't expecting 100x. You know, you only get that with you know, the Facebooks, the, you know, Snapchat, you know, Instagram, those kinds of things where like 23 engineers in a company, you know, it can be sold for billions of dollars or something like that. But 6 to 10, generally people are pretty happy here. 6 to 10x. Yeah. So one of the concerns, Iftach Gianamet, you know, posted, you know, well, you know, does this mean they're going to focus more on GCP? You know, is Azure, Oracle, AWS gonna become a secondary priority now that Google owns it? And I haven't been looking closely enough at Mandiant and Chronicle to see if that's happened to those products, but I would imagine that would somewhat answer that question. But yeah, that could be a concern for customers. Sure.
I mean, I think the tendency is going to be there because Google's going to look at it and say, hey, we want this capability in our stuff. And they're going to push that harder than they're going to say, and make sure you get it to AWS and Azure as well, you know, at the same time or anything like that.
Well,
the
it's not
incentives aren't going to
necessarily
quite line up that way.
It's not necessarily going to be that they're, you know, not giving as much attention to the other clouds. Part of it's going to be because they control GCP and they have Wiz and they have Chronicle. You know, they can align products and features, right? You know, they can do better alignment there because they don't know when products are being released on AWS until AWS announces it. You know, so they physically cannot align stuff as well. You know, they can be a partner. They can be in the partner program. Sometimes it gives you early access to new features and products before they come out, so partners can be prepared for it. But I would expect GCP with support to be really great a couple years from now.
Particularly since, you know, as GCP is working on something, the folks that are, you know, on the Wiz side are like, hey, if you could just implement it like this, then we could really get some mileage out of this. And the GCP devs are, you know, weren't even thinking of that. And they're just like, oh, yeah, we could do that. That's hard conversation to have between, you know, over to AWS or anybody else.
Can anybody? I don't know a whole lot about GitHub Actions, and I haven't read too deeply into this. Anybody else want to tackle that one?
So I don't know necessarily the details on this because I just returned from vacation where I didn't read any news whatsoever. But I was writing about secrets management today quite a bit and was reading through the previous issues that they've had. And it seems like they chronically have a little bit of a problem with exposed secrets in their pipeline. So this is a follow-on supply chain attack that started, depending on where you start anywhere from 2021 to just last year. So it's a common developer issue, right? You start with hard-coded credentials to make life easy, but then there are a number of other misconfigurations, authentication issues. So what I do know, based on very, very, very little research today, is that this is not the first thing, not the first time. It's most likely associated with the previous breaches, and most likely something that's going to set them back a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like what the GitHub action does, and the action is called changed files. Basically, you can just trigger other actions based on what kind of file changes, right? Maybe there's particular actions you need to run when only certain files change. But the malicious code they put in there doesn't seem to have anything to do with what the actual action script does. It just dumps creds from memory on whatever server you run that on. So it's basically a Mimikatz for GitHub actions is how I'm thinking of it from what I'm reading here. Very good write-up from Caitlin Campanu from our one of my favorite podcasts. If you're not listening to this one, you should listen to Risky Business. Very, very good podcast. I would not be offended if you listen to them instead of us. Not a long list for me, but Caitlin Campanu does a lot of good work, and this was the best description I found of all the. There's tons and tons of articles on this, and this is the best one that I found. It's kind of hard to explain. He does a good job with that. The next GitHub one here is just straight up social engineering. So basically, it sounds like somebody was mass filing issues on GitHub projects, on GitHub repos, and any member of the public with a GitHub account can file an issue on a open source or any public repo. And basically, they're filing this alert, making it sound like you need to go. There's some. I love these that are basically, your credentials have been stolen or potentially stolen. You have to change your password, and then they steal your credentials. They do exactly what they, say that you need to protect against. And I'm guessing in here, they're using HTML links here. So there's a link to change password. I'm assuming that link to change password goes to, github.ru, some fake version of GitHub that looks like the real thing.
They actually said it took them to an authorization page for a Git security app OAuth request. So you click on those links and it takes you to the authorize this app. And then it has a ton of stuff that the app can do inside of your profile, including delete your repositories, apparently, which might be a little concerning.
Well, check out the screenshot here. Authorizing Git security app, all lowercase, all one word, will redirect to https://github-com-auth-secure-access-token.unrender.com.
Good gosh, where was that in there?
In the second screenshot.
In that screenshot.
Yeah, at the very bottom of that screenshot, where it's requesting permissions. And it's requesting everything. Delete repositories, read and write access to gists, read-only access to organizations and teams, repos, public and private, full access to personal user data. Yeah, pretty much everything.
I mean, I did look at their message on that they file, as they talk about the credential access, and I was reading through it, and I'm like, okay, well, the English seems to be pretty good. I don't see any obvious sentences where you're like, whoa, that was not looking right, until you get to GitHub, generic GitHub security team, and then, but
got to look at those URLs. Same thing you learned in phishing training and security awareness training. Look at the URL. Look at
The
where
funny
the
thing
link
they
goes.
said was the IP address that this authorization, that the login occurred on, was always the same IP address from Reykjavik, Iceland.
Interesting.
So I thought
Yeah,
that was kind of
Reykjavik is nice this time of year. Why not?
So I think that's Reykjavik has some very like bulletproof VPS hosting services there. So I suspect it's probably that, like it's a no logging, no extradition, no sharing with law enforcement type of VPS service, I bet.
yeah. I just thought you're looking at it, you're like, oh yeah, I could see. Can you imagine being tired and you're working and you see something like this and you start reacting? And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've been tired enough. I'm not making good choices anymore.
Or
So,
and
or
then of
reading
course
like
it's
this without
Right.
glasses. I've done that. Yeah.
And of course, it's and I feel like in some of these workflows, this kind of reminds me of the BEC workflow where the routing numbers changed, and like routing numbers, it's super easy to look those up for banks. Like there's a static list that you can just download of all banks and what the routing numbers are, and all you have to do is pop up in that workflow. Are you expecting to send $7 million to Croatia? Because that's what you're about to do. And you could do that here. Are you expecting to authorize to a server in Iceland, in Reykjavik? Because that's what you're about to do. I don't know. Maybe that's easier said than done. But, and it does say that. It says login information, Reykjavik, Iceland. But then it has you authorized to Reykjavik, Iceland. Oh, no, it's saying that the unusual activity from their account was from that. But is it also going to that? Oh, maybe I'm just confused.
They don't say that.
Okay, they don't say.
But you are going
that
to, like you
is.
pointed out, that URL, you're going to some dodgy site. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, now I'm tempted to look up that. I'm sure that domain's probably been taken down by now. I don't know what OnRender is, but it's probably a service where they've already requested a takedown there. It's probably pointless to look that up. Anyway, yeah, just straight up social engineering still works. Very much a wide net they're casting. They created like 12,000 this social engineering attack on 12,000 GitHub repos all at the same time. So I'm sure they got one or two out of that 12,000 or maybe more. I don't know.
Phishing works.
It works,
Sometimes
especially
it works
when you
really
cast,
well.
Yeah, especially when you cast a net that wide.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next one we don't really have to talk about too much. It's kind of here is just to make a point, and it's a brief history of mass hacks, and these are really supply chain hacks almost. These are things where, Move It, Fortra, Cisco, these widely distributed products, software and hardware products, had some kind of bug and were exposed to the public internet and just got hacked en masse, right? Ivanti, ConnectWise, VPNs, firewalls. Yeah. Don't put your management interface on the public internet, please. Don't do it.
But I can work
Sonic
from home
Wall
that way.
Fortinet.
It's cool.
Or behind a VPN, same thing.
It's brutal to watch, though, when you see these happen. I mean, these things come in waves, and previous job, watch it start hitting with some of the intrusions they're talking about here, and it's painful to watch because, in that case, I was at an endpoint company, and there's nothing you can do about their firewall or their VPN.
Right.
You just watch the connections come in. You're like, oh, great. Here we go. Time to start notifying companies because they have a problem. And nobody wants to I mean, having been an infrastructure sysadmin, anytime you start patching something like this, you start getting the heebie-jeebies really fast. You're like, oh, don't let this go wrong.
Yeah.
you know?
Just protect the management port.
Well, there is that. Yeah, I mean, there's the configuration parts. That's okay, but
there's mitigations here. Access the management interface on your firewall using some kind of ZTNA product. Some kind of like there's all kinds of stuff out. There's stuff out there that's free that you can use to do that, where you don't have to expose it to the public internet.
Yeah, just configuration.
So, yeah, it's interesting seeing all the chat go on about AI, particularly agentic AI. Like we've already got. There's already a ton of challenges with just with generative AI, and and yeah, agentic so we have to define what agentic means, right? First off,
yes, because
I did have to go look it up.
It's currently the latest buzzword that you will see in all of your product marketing materials. Not mine. I won't do it.
So when you see agentic used on LinkedIn, generally they're talking about like a concept that doesn't really exist a whole lot of places that I've seen yet, and products that you could stitch together, but I haven't really seen a whole lot of people doing, which is this idea that you have different LLMs specialized in different things. You've given them access to APIs. So think like a Tynes or a Zapier or some kind of automation product. Except the orchestration automations are dynamic and controlled by some master LLM. And it's autonomous and it runs on its own without human intervention. And I don't know anybody that's just willing to throw stuff to the wind and let something go full autonomous like that. So the actual agentic stuff I see is just like Gemini's deep research model or OpenAI's deep research model, where all it is it's like a normal ChatGPT prompt, except you're asking it to do something more complex that it has to break down into steps, and it gives you like a project plan. It's like, okay, so Gemini actually lets you edit the product plan in real time as you do it. And so it'll make the plan, show it to you. It's like, okay, here's what I'm planning on doing. And you can edit that, you hit go, and it takes 10 minutes and it scrapes like 200 websites. Like most of my stuff are research requests. And I have it go out and scrape a bunch of websites so I don't have to visit 200 websites or 200 pages on Microsoft's website to do this task. And then it summarizes it at the end. Like it pulls all that data back and summarizes it, and you get basically a report. Based on what you asked for. So that's the agentic that's actually being used out there. But I think what this article is talking about is the more ambitious, like full autonomy, access to a bunch of APIs, has a bunch of power. And that just sounds scary.
Yeah. So one of the things in this report was that IT professionals, I think it was something like nearly 90%, say that their infrastructure requires upgrades to effectively deploy AI agents. So 90%, that's a lot, right? And since such big security and privacy concerns remain, and we just don't have a lot of governance right now, and we don't know which security measures are really effective for mitigation, companies are moving ahead because it sounds great. It sounds like a great thing to be able to do with all this AI and efficiency gains, productivity gains, focusing humans on the more important work versus the rote work. It's just a little too scary to really trust it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen some other research about using these, and just when you actually go and test, the results are pretty bad right now. And I think the security community knows, I hope the security community knows that this is not ready for prime time. This is not ready for autonomy. But the business end is super excited about anything that gets them farther. So it's similar to mobile. It's similar to cloud. We have been here before. We have seen this movie before. It's just going at a faster pace now, partially because of these, I'm not going to say AI, I refuse to do it, LLMs and other machine learning type of solutions.
Well, there's this kind of corporate wet dream of like being able to file the next quarter and say, we didn't have to hire new people because AI did all this stuff for us and created all these efficiencies. And, you know, like, so they're going to try. They're going to try and create those efficiencies with agentic AI. I don't think it's going to work out. Certainly not with where the technology is right now. Like some of the agentic stuff that's just a single model that I've played with will occasionally switch into different languages, and I can't figure out why.
But can you figure out the language?
Mid-process. In my case, it was Spanish, so yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
But I just had to start a new fresh session. Like that session was just burned. I could not get it to switch back into English, and I don't know why it happened. So there's all kinds of weird stuff that's going to happen.
I love the headline in that LinkedIn article you posted to link to. Another experimental phase. Guinea pig shouldn't pay to be experimented on.
Yeah.
I was like,
poor guinea pig.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you're
It's
getting
true.
with it, right? Like, we're going to try this and we're going to see what happens. What do you get? What's the outcome? I don't know.
Yeah, even the notes tied to some of these foundational models that are coming out, they're like could be useful. See what you can do with it. We don't know. Like weird stuff happened when we tested it. $20,000 a month. Have fun. I don't think that's going to happen either. The OpenAI $20,000 a month for agentic, so. Yeah, the question is posed in this article, why are we pushing something nobody wants? And going back to this, Security Funded, this week's Security Funded newsletter, which is the link for the first story for the fundings. Every week, Mike Prevet does a survey. He calls it his vibe check. And the results from last week's vibe check, he asked whether you're a security leader, product builder, or investor, if AI is not the game changer for security yet, what is? And 94% of people said more efficient security operations and processes, which is interesting because that's exactly why people are using AI. And yet they're basically implying that AI is not giving them more efficient security operations and processes.
No, because you have to spend that much time going through it. I mean, I can only really talk about actual writing, actual content, which I understand a lot of people think is an antiquated skill, but I can tell you that whether it's from my day job or freelance or editing friends' stuff that they send me just because I'm a geek and like to do that kind of thing, the amount of time I spend correcting people's articles, reports, blog posts for simple stuff. And it's so clear. So I have to believe that when AI, LLMs, whatnot, are being used for security operations, the same thing is happening at a technical level. It's so obvious when this stuff is written with an LLM. I have so many people send me things saying, hey, I wrote this. And I'm like, you did not. Maybe you wrote the first draft, but you clearly put this through an LLM. There are patterns. There are very clear tells. It's just very,
I was just listening to a webinar with Scott Galloway earlier, and he was saying, sorry if you don't know who Scott Galloway is, but founded don't need to go into it, but look him up. I'm a fan of Scott Galloway's thoughts, but he says like the worst insult he can give his team, and he kind of runs an online school that's like an alternative to an MBA, and they do a lot of AI training. He says the worst insult he can give his team is this sounds like it was written by AI.
It's so bad. And people really honestly think that they're doing better when they send me these articles that have been either written or, in quotes,
were those
improved.
Articles good before AI though?
Well, maybe or maybe not, but it was at least easier for me to get a tone of voice.
Yeah.
Going back 10, 12 years ago, I used to work with a whole bunch of security professionals who were brilliant but couldn't write a lick. They'd send me bullet points, and I'd turn them into prose, which again at the time was preferable, something that was fun to read and easy. And then they would get their report and it would be in their tone of voice, but it would be based on real data. That was so much easier and more fun for me to write than correcting crappy grammar with like weird context and bizarre things inserted, any kind of random quote that maybe the LLM pulled off the internet.
Yeah.
I was doing a
AI
summary.
will totally pad stuff out.
I was doing a summary of a report, and I test it all the time. Just to be clear, I test AI all the time. This is why I can spot it, because I want to make sure I know how it's working so that I can still have a job, right? Like I need to be able to prove my own ROI, and it's really, really important to see if these things are working. It's not, because I put in something and it pulled out a bulleted summary, which is what I asked for, which pulled in something that had nothing to do with the content. There were about 1,000 words, nothing to do with the content, but it scrapes any other training data that it has, and not just your own, unless it's your own private LLM, which most companies don't have. It scrapes the data and pulls in random stuff.
There's a term for it now. It's AI slop. When AI does that, it's called slop.
And I can tell you it's very sloppy, and it takes me so much longer to correct garbage blog posts, articles, reports. And again, this comes from a wide swath of stuff that I edit. It's, I definitely don't want to implicate my company here. Just disclaimer for anybody listening, this is not focused on my day job
She's
at all.
talking about stuff that I've written for.
Yeah, it was all you, Jason. It was all you. No, of course not. Of course not. But I just want to be very clear in case somebody tries to take that away. It's not that. But it takes me so much longer to edit LLM written, or again, in quotes, improved content than it would for me to start with that bulleted list.
You have to just write it from scratch. Yeah.
Right. Start with that bulleted list. So I have to assume, and this could be wrong, maybe it's so much better with logs. Maybe it's so much better with other types of more technical data, but I doubt it.
Where I find it useful is give me the outline. I'll do all the writing, but help me structure something, right? And I think a lot of it is going to be education. Like there are useful things that it can do, but there are a lot of wrong ways to use it. And it's almost like we have to come up with a style guide for using AI to write, right? We need to come up with some kind of like, here's the do's and don'ts. It still needs to be in your words. It still needs to have a voice, a human voice, not this kind of, milquetoast billboard writing, that that it spits
I have
out.
one. If anybody wants one, I've written a style guide for AI.
Okay.
But just for content, just to be clear, this is, if you're using it for security ops, I cannot help you with that. I'm just assuming that the parallels are there. I am assuming that the issues that I am facing are there. From the piece of research I edited today, I know that using code or using AI and LLMs to generate code is not sufficient either. I can't go into any more details because that would give away the research, and it would,
Gotcha.
it would ruin the surprise when this person decides to publish their article on, code that is written using AI. But I can tell you that this person did the research, and it was incredibly interesting what they found about code written with AI and how it failed a number of pretty common security checks.
Yeah. Well, make sure to share that with us so we can talk about it after it comes out on the news segment. I'd be interested to check that out.
It's pretty fascinating. But
Yeah.
I was told, hold, don't say anything. Okay.
So story 8, 9, and 10 are just kind of there for funsies. 8 is so Cloudflare. If you know about their lava lamps, they basically have these kind of fun, almost like there for PR goodness, like ways that they create entropy for when they create security keys, crypto keys, and stuff like that. And the latest one is in the Portugal Lisbon office. They have a bunch of like desk toys that create waves that lean back and forth. If you click the link, you'll see a picture of it.
And if you go look at that picture of that office, you will see the most awesome view ever to work from. Looking out across the water and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I'd never go home.
For sure.
That's incredible.
Well, maybe that is the
hey, if it works, I guess it works. But it was a pretty sweet view.
Holy cannoli.
I wasn't kidding.
Are they hiring in the Lisbon office? I am free and available. What do you need me to do? Empty the garbage? Sure, I'm there. Wow. Yeah, I'd never get anything done.
No, I don't talk about my productivity. I'm just talking about the view. Sorry, squirrel.
And then, well, we were not quite to the squirrel yet, or the rat, as it is this week. But router maker Zyxel tells customers to replace vulnerable hardware. I think it's reasonable. Like routers, these kinds of routers, these are built as cheaply as possible. They're not going to last 20 years. You shouldn't expect them to last 20 years. And you shouldn't expect Zyxel to support them for 20 years. So yes, some of these are vulnerable. People are kind of pointing to the fact that you can still buy them on Amazon, but you can't buy them new and you can't buy them from Zyxel. These are just used or refurbished ones. You can buy anything on eBay. You can buy, ancient stuff that's very vulnerable. But
has anybody else noticed that Amazon is becoming a online swap meet?
Yeah, for sure.
For just random crap.
Sometimes you have to check.
Buy.
A couple times I've ordered something and it was not a new item, and I was expecting a new item. So you have to be very careful. And sometimes it has to ship from Hong Kong and it takes a month when I was expecting 2 days. So yeah, you gotta look very carefully these days. Honestly, I'm using Amazon less and less. I try to go to other stores when I can. I've been having a lot of problems with stuff. HP's printers are resilient to post-quantum attacks. Okay, so great.
Apparently, there was a federal directive that said if you wanted to buy your stuff, it's got to be quantum resistant by X date. Yeah. But I would like a printer to work.
Yeah, on the list of things people want out of printers, that wasn't on the list at all. not high on the list. It wasn't on except for the government, apparently.
I'm with Jason. I want my printer that I bought for home just to print.
Yeah. My 3D printer works great. My 2D printer collects dust. I almost never print anything these days. I use my Remarkable for most of the things that I used to print stuff for. So I use an e-ink tablet these days. And our squirrel story is about a rat. Carolina the giant rat retires as a hero after saving many lives. I've seen a couple stories about this, but these African giant pouched rats have like even better than dogs in some cases, in some use cases. Their sense of smell is even better than dogs, and they train them to find landmines and tuberculosis, and it's really, really cool.
Wow.
And I can't read the article without creating an account on National Geographic.
Need a National Geographic account, unfortunately.
I hate this feature so much. I apologize if any of the links that we post in our show notes force you to log into things. It's almost impossible not to have a couple of those in every news segment. But anyway, I think it was tuberculosis because the first time I read it, I was not blocked from viewing the article. So this is annoying. All right.
Yeah, you just kind of.
Are you looking it up?
Yeah, you just kind of got to do it. I've given up because you know what? It's what everything is. And if you want information, I mean, I don't know if National Geographic is high on the list, but there are some of them you just have to do it.
I have
and what
1,400
security
items.
Professional doesn't have 14 email addresses?
I have 1,400 items in my password database, and I don't need more unless it's going to do something for me.
Yeah, but you can segment them off by dummy accounts, right? Like that's what I do. I segment my
I guess
passwords.
it's more work.
Well, no, because when you create them, you just choose the
feature
right.
request for 1Password. I need
have it automatically.
Random generation of stupid stuff.
I think they do
my,
that.
Plus whatever for my Gmail account, so I can sign up for crap websites.
I think some of them do. I want to say I saw that somewhere that some of them, it might be 1Password integrate with like will generate a throwaway email account for you or something like that. I think that might be a thing. I feel like I've seen that somewhere. Okay, but these rats, they can screen 100 samples for tuberculosis in 20 minutes, much faster than a human who takes 4 days to process the same amount of information with a microscope.
Wow.
So very cool.
Cool.
This rat and 40 others prevented nearly 400,000 cases of tuberculosis last year.
So it's not AI taking over the world. It's rats.
Yeah, it turns out mammal brains can do some things really good.
I watched Ratatouille. I saw what they can do.
Yeah. Cook me a meal. Cook me a meal, rat. I've got plenty of hair to grab onto. I'll find a hat, put you under. All right. Thank you so much, Jason and Katie. You listeners or viewers probably definitely noticed that Sean had to drop off. He had to go. But thanks, guys, so much for joining me today. It's been a really good episode, and next one is 400.
Ooh.
Big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Next week, we talk to Neil Desai from Graylog about setting up your SIM for success, and Jeff Cairns from Forrester about the top trends in identity and access management, because he will be speaking at Identiverse. See you then. Bye-bye.